Hey guys, welcome back to Jessin Reads Romance. I'm Jessin and today I'm here with a weekly wrap-up. So let's talk about all of these exciting books that I read for the past week and a day, because I did tack on like an extra day. We'll get into that in a little bit. But where I left off in my last weekly wrap-up, I was in the middle of reading Pam Godwin's Trails of Sin series, and this cowboy romance series is dark, definitely gritty, and you definitely have to read them in order. So you have to read Knotted before you read the second book, Buckled. But Buckled, I just really love the family dynamic in this series, because the main characters in Knotted, Jake and Connor, they're a couple. They're also best friends with Jarrett. So Jarrett is Jake's twin brother, and Jarrett's really close with Connor as well. They all grew up together, and so did Connor's older brother Lauren, who is in jail for reasons that you have to read Knotted for. But in Buckled, we get to know a lot more about Jarrett, and these cowboys are super fine and very sexy, very sought after in the small town that they're in. And the heroine, Maybe, her name is literally Maybe, thanks Mom, she comes to town, and our characters know that she is writing a story. Like, she presents herself as basically a reporter just by the clothes that she's wearing. She's sitting at the local bar. Everyone else is in casual wear, cowboy boots and everything, and Maybe is wearing like high heels and like kind of like a suit. And what I love about the way that Pam Godwin approaches characters, like backstories and stuff like that, especially Maybe's backstory, is it's so vague, her exact motivations. We know that she's looking for a story. We know that she thinks that Jarrett and Jake are covering up something. Spoiler alert, she's completely right, which makes it more exciting because there's high stakes. Like, if Maybe discovers what they've done, which is a slight spoiler for Knotted, then our beloved characters could be in a lot of trouble. So it's just very exciting when you have such a tenacious character like Maybe, who she's digging some dirt on them. And it feels a little personal. Like, you can tell like her motivations, like there's something more than just wanting the story. Yes, she comes off as like a desperate character. We do find out that she is living out of her car, and we don't know why her circumstances have changed. We just know that she used to have a job and she used to have a home, and now something has been taken away from her. And so I was like racking my brain trying to figure out like what, if any, connection there was between Maybe and our characters and what happened to Connor in book one that like set off this chain of events. Spoiler alert, I did not guess what it was. By the end, I did not guess why Maybe was so dead set on finding out the secrets of these brothers and Connor. But I really liked her character. I really did. And there is some kink in this book. Both of the brothers are into bondage, and Jarrett is very dominant. And they have some really great scenes. Like, there was a scene out in the rain that was just very beautiful and powerful. Pam Godwin just does dark, gritty, kinky sex scenes that are extremely emotional. She does that very well. And so I was very satisfied with Buckled. I thought it was a great book. There was a couple of things that I was just kind of like, about. And it was mostly with like the villainous characters that we have left. I don't know what happened to my light. It just like went away. But anyway, I didn't really love a couple things about this book. And Crystal and I were actually having this conversation in our reading sprints last Friday, that it's hard when you're reading a author that you have loved books, like loved, you have top favorites. I have a 6-star book that Pam Godwin has written. I have multiple 5-star books that Pam Godwin has written. And you start to begin to compare like this book to the other Pam Godwin books that I have read. And that's what happened here. It's like I was comparing Buckled to Knotted, and then comparing both of those to like my favorite books that Pam Godwin has written. So I ended up by giving this one a 4-star, but I don't know that, I don't know, I just enjoyed it a lot more. But that's whenever star ratings become just kind of hard. But yeah, I'm gonna stick to my guns and be like 4, because I didn't like it as much as Knotted, which was 4.5 stars. And then when we get into, I know I put that book right here. Oh, here it is. Okay, I just had to, okay. So when we get into the next book of the series, storyline, Booted, I don't know why I had it in my mind that Knotted was just going to be my favorite book of the series. So I didn't really have too many expectations going into Booted. This book is about Lorne, who is the older brother of Connor, the heroine from the first book. And for the majority of the series, Lorne has been in jail for reasons which you have to read Knotted for. So Lorne has been in jail for, I want to say like 7.5 years. It's changed him. And now that he's finally been released, he has obvious triggers when it comes to like coming back home. This is the thing that I think that Pam Godwin explains so beautifully, like thinking of home, thinking of his sister and his friends, his best friends, Jake and Jarrett. It got him through the horrors of being locked up in jail. But the second he gets out and he is actually at the home that he's been fantasizing about, like, you know, the first shower that he's going to take and being in his room again, it's so jarring to him. He can barely be around other people because if they, you know, grab him from behind, put their hand on the shoulder like in a friendly way, it like spooks him and triggers him, and he feels so confined that he has to sleep outside like underneath the stars. It's just a very hard transition for Lauren, and I really felt that for him. And the heroine, Raina, she is somebody that you do meet in the first book, and I wasn't expecting her to be Lauren's heroine. And at first, I really didn't have that much attachment to her as a character. I was just kind of like, I don't know if I want them together. And then I had to bite my tongue as I was reading because Pam Godwin just did it so perfectly. So this is a slight spoiler for the series. I will put a spoiler tag on this right now. So Raina was actually the girlfriend of John. John is the father of Jarrett and Jake, the twins. We do find out in Buckled, the previous book, that Raina is being held against her will and abused by John. Maybe does rescue Raina. And Raina is this beautiful Native American woman, and she's the same age as John's kids. So something's going on here. And we know that John is a bad guy, quote unquote. He's the one that planned for Connor's sexual assault. And we do find out that his shadiness really knows no bounds when it comes to just getting rid of the people that are in his way. He is a terrible human being, and I think that might be the thing that doesn't set this series as high as like other books that I read by her. Like I feel like she does darkness. It's a totally different vibe in the Deliver series, but I just feel like she does villains and the stakes in the Deliver series a little bit better. The fathers being like the villains of the story, I felt like that could have really been powerful and impactful, but instead it's just kind of like John and I forgot what Connor and Lauren's father was named. They felt like normal guys until they weren't and they were villains. Like there was no real red flags that the children like grew up like thinking that their parents were a little bit shady. And the fact that like both of their mothers just like never saw this in their spouses, it was just kind of like mind-blowing to me. And I feel like it was just a little bit lazy villain development, and that is the only real negative that I have to say about the series, is the villain development is not like my favorite. But the whole motivation for Booted is that John wants Raina back. Like he is just obsessed with her. He wants her back. She has been treated like a whore. And we do find out Raina's backstory is that, well, she kind of grew up that way. Her mom was not an attentive parent. She was more interested in drugs, not taking care of her kid. She had a younger sister who had some medical issues, and she turned to prostituting herself so that she could pay for her sister's medical bills. And I think she started whenever she was like 14 years old. Their house ended up by being close to the jail, so she actually was propositioning convicted felons who were recently released from jail. So she has lived a hard life, and I really liked her background of associating sex with just like a job. That way when she meets Lauren who hasn't had sex in, you know, since he's been imprisoned, they both are very mistrustful of people, and they are both very damaged but find healing in the other. And I will say that Pam Godwin does make some very alpha heroes in this series, and Lauren I think is the worst of them all, honestly. At least outwardly so. Sometimes he can be quite the jerk, and I will say I loved when Raina stood up for herself, because she does multiple times. She slaps him across the face a couple times, and I'm just like, you go girl, do not let him talk to you like that. Because he does. He tended to lash out at her. But like, I love their relationship so much. I love the healing that they found with each other, and I love the strength that Raina gained. And also there is a hint of found family, like Raina actually being embraced by this group of people who grew up together, and now all of a sudden she has people in her corner, and I just really love that for her. It was just really beautiful. So yeah, I will say that I probably love Lauren and Raina the best, but Knotted coming in at like a close second. So I'm going to give this book 5 stars. So I really enjoyed it. Then I reread The Madness of Lord Ian McKenzie, which I forgot to go grab it, but I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to stop this train. It's rolling. But, and it's also a reread. I've talked about this book multiple times. Ian McKenzie, if you've not read The Madness of Lord Ian McKenzie by Jennifer Ashley, like, you are absolutely missing out. Ian is such a beautiful soul. This is probably one of my favorite historical romances, and if you have spent any time on my channel, then I'm a huge rereader, and I've been rereading a lot more this year in 2022. It'll be interesting to see, like, at the end of the year, how many books have I reread compared to previous years, because I do keep track of all that. And what makes this such a unique historical romance is, I mean, not only that Ian is a character who everyone has made the assumption that Ian has to be on the spectrum. He was never labeled as such in the book itself, but there's just so many tells when it comes to, like, his mannerisms, the way that he interacts with people socially, and things that he becomes obsessed with. I really loved Ian's character so much. He is such a beautiful character, one of my favorite heroes in historical romance. But what also makes this book so special is Beth, the heroine, the way that she reacts to Ian. Lots of people think that he is mad because he does have a history. When he was little, he was thrown in an asylum. His father, who was a horrible man, put him there, and his brothers eventually got him out. But most people will just write him off as this madman. He's not all there in the head, but Beth looks beyond that, and she is so fascinated by him and loves his bluntness, and she can be blunt back. And I just love the way that Beth accepts Ian. That's what makes this book so special to me. So that's why I chose it for my reread. And also I want to reread Cam's too and continue on with the McKenzie series. I recently read Rules for Proper Governess, which is within the McKenzie and McBride series. And that's what kind of prompted me to go back to the OG Ian and Beth, because they're my favorite couple in this series so far. So yeah, it was another 5-star book for me, another reread. Then I also reread Entreat Me for the podcast. This is a shiny book, so we'll see if I can reduce that. But Entreat Me by Grace Draven. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling fantasy, and it's just really beautiful romance, and it's kind of a 2-for-1 romance as well. Our hero Ballard, he was cursed by his first wife who died in childbirth. She had always hated him. They did not have a happy marriage. In fact, his son Gavin is not even his, and he knows this because there's a special birthmark that all the people in his family have. And Ballard really shows, like, his character when he discovers that, you know, the baby that his wife just brought into the world is not his, and he's just like, I don't care. Like, I already love this human, and I'm claiming him as my own, and he's going to inherit this estate and everything after I die. Like, I'm claiming him, and I love him. So I really love that introduction for Ballard. Like, he just doesn't give a shit. He's just like, this is my kid, and I don't care. So after Isabeau curses Ballard, we have a time jump that says, like, 372 years later. So time is moving slower in Ballard's estate, because he does have a sorcerer that works for him named Ambrose. Our heroine, which I still to this day don't know exactly how you pronounce it, I call her Louvain, but Louvain is a widow. She was widowed like 2 or 3 years ago. Her husband Thomas was an undertaker, and they had a really happy marriage, so she does, like, mourn him. She has been mourning him. But her sister Cinia is gorgeous. She's beautiful, but her father has fallen on hard times these past couple of years after her stepmother died. Her stepmother really handled the finances, and her dad's really not that great. He made horrible investments, so now they're very impoverished, and they owe some bad people money. Person wants to collect by marrying the younger sister, Sinea. Louvain is just like, that's not going to happen. We need to figure out a way. Sinea is being courted by this man named Gavin, and she's like, I'm in love with him, and I think if I marry him, like, his father, he comes from a wealthy family, and he'll be able to pay our debts. And Louvain just like, I don't want to owe anybody. This seems like a terrible idea. Sometimes you live with your head in the clouds, Sinea. And Sinea gets really kind of offended. She's like, you always treat me like a child. They have like a 7-year age gap between Louvain and Sinea, and Louvain kind of became her mother figure because her stepmother Abigail died when Sinea was 5. So Louvain kind of took over managing the household and also her younger sister. So she cares very deeply for Sinea, but she can be a little bit overbearing at some times. So Sinea does take it into her own hands and kind of runs away with Gavin. She does leave a note. She's like, hey Louvain, I'm going with Gavin. We're going to meet his dad, and this scroll is enchanted because I know you'll be worried about me, but like, she's already setting the ball in motion by basically eloping with Gavin. So Louvain, who has a deep distrust of magic. She has a history of deep distrust with magic. Follows her sister hoping that she can save her from ruination, and decides, she is convinced that Gavin deserves to court her and she has to stay at this castle. So she meets Gavin's dad, Ballard. He has these black claws. He walks around with a cloak. And I love their first meeting so much because when Louvain sees him, he's expecting a reaction more like Sinea had when Sinea first beheld Ballard and all his kind of like scarred, beastly, ghostly, like his pallor just really like gray, shocked and kind of a little disgusted and put off. Louvain does not react that way. She's just kind of like, I've seen worse, you know? And I love that for them. So this book is like really quiet. It's really mostly about the relationships. There's some comedic relief because Louvain is playing chaperone, so she really likes to be overbearing about like, hey, don't get too close to each other types of stuff, while she's also flirting with Ballard, the dad. And I love that. I love it. So anyway, this is such a great book. I loved it. And I love talking to Juliet about it. Oh, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Next, so I actually, a couple weeks ago, I decided that I was going to start requesting ARCs again. I haven't requested ARCs since like last summer because I didn't feel like it was fair to request the ARCs and not being able to get a review out in time for the authors who were sending me the books. But I decided, I was like, hey, you know what? I kind of feel like requesting ARCs again. So I got an influx of them, and the first one that I picked up was American Royalty by Tracy Livesay. Now, I will preface this by saying that I am not one that gravitates toward the modern royal trope in contemporary romance. I have a history of just not really loving those books. Not that I hate them, but they just don't intrigue me as much as other subgenres in contemporary romance. But the reason why I picked this one up is because Crystal said that she really enjoyed it, and she was talking about the premise and how the heroine, Dani, which her, I guess you would call it like her performing name is Duchess, she's a rapper. So it's a rapper, a black female rapper being paired with a prince. And I was just like, why does that intrigue me so much? I don't know, it does. I just love that seems like very opposing lifestyles. I like that pairing, so I decided to request it, and I read, that was the first one I wanted to pick up. The introduction to Dani, aka Duchess, is pretty awesome. She's shooting a music video for her music, and she is a boss bitch. Like, you just have that vibe from her from the very beginning. She wants control of basically everything. She wants control of her image, and she's kind of like bucking against the stuff that she has to kind of swallow, since she has like contracts and she has connections that she's built with people who are very like popular and big names in the industry. Sometimes she feels like she has to compromise like what she wants in order to please other people, but she's trying to break free from that. And one of the things that she's done is she wants to expand her image from just like a very popular female rapper to somebody who is a very savvy businesswoman, and she decides to start her own skincare line for women of color, and it's, you know, booming. It's taking off. The next steps that she wants to take is to have a big name investor invest in her brand in a way that she would still have control over their products and her message. The only problem is that recently she's been embroiled in a little bit of scandal, not of her own making. There's just an up-and-coming pop star that decides to make up a story in which she and Duchess are feuding. And Duchess just kind of like, I don't even know her, but apparently we're feuding because the media has picked up on this story. And this girl who has had like a one-hit wonder, she's just trying to keep her name in like the magazines and all that jazz. She just creating bullshit storylines just to stay relevant. That becomes like the basis for her story arc, is that she needs to bolster her reputation again because she's having some negative press. And one of the ways that she's doing that is she gets an offer to go perform at a concert for the English monarchy. Now, in this scenario for a modern royal romance, there's a couple of different types of modern royal romances that I have read. Some of them choose to create their own fictional countries that we don't mess with any, you know, real people in real life, aka the real British monarchy. Like, we don't mess with those. Some, like Red, White, and Royal Blue, which I have read and I didn't love. Those just replace the royals that we actually know in real life with other people. And that's what Tracy Livesay did. She just replaced the British monarchy with this new family. And Jameson, the hero, is a minor prince. Like, he is not even the next in line. It is his his uncle is the Prince of Wales. So like he's not even like directly in line for the throne and doesn't even expect to inherit at all. He actually just wants a quiet life. He is an academic. He teaches philosophy in, I forgot what city, but he does. He's a professor and he really loves that. And he just wants to be like left alone. He doesn't want to be a working royal. He just wants his peace and quiet, but that all changes because the concert is in memory of his grandfather who died a number of years back, but he got really close with his grandfather after his own father actually died. And he feels the need to step up when his grandmother asks him to step up for this concert in honor of his grandfather and the causes that his grandfather supported, which he also has an interest in supporting them, like environmental causes. The alternative is that his uncle, who is just disgusting, would take over that, and he's just like, I don't want my uncle to have a hand in anything that my grandfather found important because he doesn't care like I care. So he's kind of like strong-armed into this position of he's in control of this concert and all that jazz. And he doesn't really want to be, and he's not even a person that's like up to date with like pop culture or anything. So he's the wrong person to ask like, hey, what are some featured artists that you want to feature in this concert? He literally asks a random person. He's like, hey, who are some popular artists? And that's how he ends up by picking Duchess. He's like, Duchess, that sounds great. And it's kind of like punny, like having a person whose stage name is Duchess perform for like actual royal family. That sounds pretty tongue-in-cheek. Let's bring her on. And so he has no idea that she is a rapper, and it's kind of awesome. So I was like grinning ear to ear, like I know that he's going to be like, what the hell? This is not what I expected, and I was living for this situation. Interestingly enough, they don't even meet for like the first like 35% of this book. I was kind of like, wow, this book is going on for quite a while and they still haven't even met each other. And while I enjoyed each character's individual struggles. I enjoyed Duchess and the way that she struggled with the public's, perception of her. There was nothing that she did wrong, but it doesn't matter when the public feels like they know you and they're creating like their own idea of you and what you have done or said, which can be completely untrue, and she's just trying to like ignore that and move on with her life. She's struggling with the industry and how insular it is and how obsessed they are with having like a pristine reputation, because if not, it's just kind of like, we don't want to be involved with somebody with, cancel culture being a thing, so like fix your reputation before we invest in your company type of thing. So she's really struggling with that. And then when she meets Jameson, they don't have the greatest first meeting because he does have a crush on her and he hides his feelings for her by being an asshole to her. And I kind of didn't love that choice. And that was just a personal thing for me. I don't know. I wish that it wasn't so like enemies to lovers type of thing, because the first initial meeting was pretty bad. Like he was such an asshole, and it just didn't fit with my image of him that we were first presented, of him being like this laid back college professor that just wanted to stay out of the limelight. And then all of a sudden he just seemed like an easygoing guy. And then when he met Duchess, he was literally a dick. And I was just like, I don't understand this. I don't understand this choice. So for me, that was a weird choice. I didn't love their antagonism for each other. Like she was also doing stuff where I'm just kind of like, I get it, he was an asshole, but now you're doing stuff that I would kind of be offended for. Like they just were not helping each other out. And then we get to their romantic chemistry. Like I said, once Jameson figures out like who Duchess is, he goes like watch her music videos and she's hot. And so of course he's attracted to her. But I feel like upon first meeting for both of them, it's just kind of like, damn, this guy's hot. And he of course is just kind of like, I really want to fuck her. And I got to make sure that I don't fuck her. I need to be mean to her so that she'll like stay out of my way so that I'm not tempted to fuck her. And it's just all about this sexual attraction between them. I just wanted like, I don't know. I wish that they were more friendly with each other, because it would have had me more invested in the emotional aspect of their relationship. They do eventually open up about like major issues in their lives, and they talk about those issues and their feelings about them, and they share that burden with each other. But for me, like I said, like I wish that they were on more friendlier terms for longer, because I would have been invested in it more. Another thing that I didn't really love about this book is that there were so many villainous characters. Like I said, there was the female pop star who had it out for Duchess, who just wanted to make her look bad so that she could stay relevant and she could be the darling and Duchess could like be brought down by her. We had that villainous character. And basically everyone in the monarchy, besides Jameson, the hero, is pretty horrible. There are some ones that were just like more horrible than the rest. His uncle Julian was just disgusting, like blatantly so. I was just kind of like, we went over the top with how disgusting this person is. He felt like a caricature. And then the queen, I forgot what the queen's name was in this. I want to say it starts with an M, like Marina or something like that. I don't know. She was also pretty horrible. So in this modern royal romance, like the monarchy is just bad. Like monarchy is terrible. Really has no saving graces except for Jameson, and he's not even involved with anything the monarchy really does. He's just a regular guy wanting to live a regular normal life. So I don't know. I just felt we could have scaled back on that since we had so many terrible people. I didn't even mention Danny, aka Duchess's like original manager. Like he was also a terrible human as well. Like he was taking advantage of her. There were just so many bad people in this book that I was overwhelmed with them. I wish that part, like the villainy aspect of this book, would have been a little bit more subtle, and I might have enjoyed it a little bit more. So I gave this book like 3.5 stars and I rounded up to a 4-star. It was enjoyable, yes, but also a little bit forgettable. And again, I don't normally love modern royal romances, so it's not a surprise that I didn't absolutely like love it and it didn't blow me away. But also, it was not a bad book. And a lot of it is personal opinion to me, or personal preference for me. Next, I read Give Me More by Sarah Kate. This is the 3rd book in her Salacious Players series club. Salacious Players Club. I always get that series title wrong. This whole series is like very kinky. All of the friends, all the main characters own a stake in a sex club. It started off as like an app after the company that they originally worked for went under, and they all know that they have like some kinky things that they like to do in the bedroom. So they're just like, hey, seems like a niche market that we could tap into. Let's open a sex club. And this particular one, Give Me More, I was very excited about because I started getting hints that we could have an MM romance, a polyamorous romance in the series, and that's what Give Me More is. So Hunter and Isabel are already a married couple. They've been married for quite a few years. And I really like the backstory with how Hunter and Isabel met because they were pretty sidelined in the first couple of books. We just rarely saw them when they all like got together for drinks and stuff. So I didn't really know them as people until this book. And I was really kind of satisfied with Hunter and Isabel's characters. Now Drake we've seen a little bit more of. Drake is actually best friends with Hunter and also by association with Isabel because he's been there from the beginning of their relationship, and he's often the third wheel. Like when they go out on dates, sometimes they take Drake with them. He's a man whore, so he's never really settled down, never really had any girlfriends, so every time they do something fun, they're like, let's bring Drake along. He's just always been there. And I think that's what makes Give Me More work so well, is that they already have an established friendship, a deep connection already that is not sexual in nature from the beginning of this book. And for me personally, if you're going to write a polyamorous romance where I'm just like, this isn't just about the kinkiness, this isn't just about the sex and how hot it is, like it's true emotions are involved with all 3 players, I think that the advantage was to have them be friends and know each other so well from the get-go. So it pushes them over the edge from just friendship to more than friends, is that all 3 of them are going on a sex club tour around the US because Hunter is doing some research on what else could they do for their own sex club to offer like more amenities and branch out and whatever. They're just going to do some research, and Hunter is a contractor that they use to actually like build stuff for them, so he's on the road trip as well. Now you as the reader get the sense when you're in the perspectives of all 3 of them is that, you know, Drake has deep feelings for Hunter and for Isabel. He doesn't really think of them in terms of like, I'm attracted to them sexually, but he is very attached to them. Like these are 2 people, the only 2 people that he's really close with, and he has no other family. Like he truly has no one but them. And of course, Isabel is super hot. So when they're at one sex club, when Hunter is away talking to like the manager, the owner of the club, or whatever, he's just not there, Isabel and Drake are just like exploring like the different rooms, and there's demonstrations, and oh, there is a charade instructor who's showing them how to tie knots and like what are the advantages of certain things that you tie, and they rope in Drake and Isabel to do a demonstration. So Drake ties up Isabel, and that's where some sparks start to fly, and Drake's like, oh shit, am I really I'm kind of like really loving Isabel in this position. I like seeing her in like this sexual way. And he's also really conflicted because he's just like, if Hunter comes out and he sees this, like he's gonna be so pissed at me. He's gonna be so pissed at me. So he's very worried as well. And so is Isabel, but like they can't help but like the sexual attraction that's like starting to simmer. And it just starts to simmer right now. Hunter does walk out, and he has kind of the opposite reaction. Drake's thinking that his stoic, like intense stare is, oh shit, he's pissed off because the Shirabi instructor is basically instructing me to grab onto the ropes and demonstrate how you can manipulate your woman and bang the shit out of her. He's gonna kill me after this, after we go home. Instead, Hunter just kind of like, no, I wasn't mad. Like I was kind of turned on. Like, I don't know. And Hunter's the one to introduce the idea that maybe he would be into sharing Isabel. And not just with anybody, not with like random strangers. He would find, but like specifically sharing Isabel with Drake. And what makes this so great, I think that Sarah Kate handled it so well, is that I don't feel like any of this is easy. None of this comes easily. They have so many conversations. In fact, Isabel and Drake are both very resistant to the idea. At first, Isabel just kind of like, does this mean you don't love me anymore? Like, what do you mean? You want me to be with somebody else? Like, what is happening to our marriage type of thing? Drake is just kind of like, if Isabel was my woman, I would not share her. I would not be okay with sharing her with somebody else. Like, why would you do this? And what happens if we do this? And now all of a sudden I don't have my best friends anymore? What if it's weird? What if it's awkward? What if suddenly you get jealous in the middle of it and then you hate me? Like, no, this is the terrible idea. Don't want to lose our friendship. Like, no, 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 no. So I really like how there's just every progression in their sexual relationship. There's a conversation about this. No decision is made lightly in this polyamorous relationship. No decision is made lightly. I love it so much. And when the feelings between Drake and Hunter start to surface, Drake, we find out, has always kind of had a thing for Hunter, but he suppressed that, pushed it deep down. And Hunter, he actually grew up with a father who is extremely homophobic, so he has personally suppressed any sexual attraction that he's ever had to males. So both Hunter and Drake are bisexual. Hunter has completely suppressed it. Drake is openly bisexual. And when the emotions between these two start to simmer to the surface, it's so beautiful. It's so good. It's so freaking good. And yes, the sex scenes are hot, but they are extremely emotionally arresting as well. Like, you fear for these characters. Like, one wrong move in their friendship could totally just crumble. And you feel that. Like, it feels high stakes in that sense. So anyway, as you can tell, I really loved Give Me More. I gave this book 5 stars. Now we get into the books that I read yesterday. Yesterday, I was able to read 3 books. And the reason why I was able to read 3 books, because I could normally read fast. I could probably read, like, on average, if I have like nothing really to do in a given day, I can read like 1.5 books, possibly 2 books. But being realistic, like, things distract you. Even if you have nothing planned to do that day, if you're at home, you probably have like chores or something that you need to get done, or people are texting you last minute to go do something. So sometimes you get distracted. Well, I, fortunately, every single year, my sister has a summer camp that she goes to, and it's a 4.5 hour drive away. My mom does not like to drive alone, so she always invites me to come along. And yesterday I spent more like 12 hours in the car total. That's literally 9 straight hours of reading, and I was able to read 2 books fully and basically 75% of the 3rd book. And by the time I got home at around 6 o'clock, like, I just had, the last percentage of the last book. So anyway, the first one that I decided to pick up was another arc. I picked up A Matter of Temptation by Stacey Reed. I had no awareness, like previous awareness of this book, and the reason why I requested the arc is because Jen and Crystal said, oh my god, the Stacey Reed book was so good, and I saw it on NetGalley. I assumed it was connected to her series that she's currently writing, but then both Crystal and Jen said, no, it's a standalone, like, it's just a book that she wrote. A Matter of Temptation, oh my god, came out of left field for something that I wasn't like eagerly anticipating. I knew nothing about this. I did not even read the synopsis. I just automatically read Stacey Reed because she is one of my favorite historical romance writers. She's just fantastic. I love her books. And this book has one of the most captivating like opening sequences I love the way that Stacey Reid introduces the characters. First, we're introduced to Mina, who is our heroine. She's a daughter of a Viscount, and her brother is a current Viscount. They're twins. They are severely in debt. They've been economizing for like years and years and years, but all of a sudden her brother comes back home. He was trying to get like another loan from the bank to where they can like invest and like try to grow their business. They have an estate, they have a farm and stuff like that, and he was denied. But she knows that something else is going on. Like, he's not depressed and looking like pale as a ghost just because the bank denied their loan. She's like, something else went on. What happened? Well, she finds out that her twin brother Anthony got a little hot-headed when he was playing cards. So he got tempted into playing cards. The pot was really big. There was like 5,000 pounds on the line, and they could do a lot with 5,000 pounds. He was actually cheating. He was cheating. The Earl of Cheswick suspected that he was cheating. Like, he was like, oh God, this guy knows I'm cheating. His solution was, let me call out him for cheating. So he openly called out the Earl of Cheswick. The Earl's response was to just laugh and be like, you're crazy. So he doubled down on it, and Anthony challenged the Earl to a duel. And Mina is just kind of like, what would possess you to challenge the Earl to a duel? What in God's good name were you thinking? Like, he has a reputation. First of all, he's very popular in the House of Lords and stuff like that. He also is incredibly like skilled at fencing, and Anthony knew that he couldn't duel with pistols, so he chose fencing because he was pretty good at fencing. But Mina just like, oh my God, my brother is about to die. It just so happens that Mina is better than her brother at fencing, so she's just kind of like, hey, I'm better with the rapier than you are, so let me go in your stead. We're twins. We kind of have like similar, you know, I'm tall, you're pretty lanky. Like, I feel like I can pass myself off at you as you. And Anthony just kind of like, no way. Well, with the help of the cook, who's very loyal, they give Anthony a little laudanum so that she can dress up as Anthony and duel in his place. I freaking love the duel between Mina and Simon. It's so good because he truly does not know. He thinks that he is dueling Anthony. It's very dark. You know, they're dueling at dawn, but she gets there early. And what I love about the premise of this is he discovers that she is a woman who, spoiler alert, beats him in the duel very early. He like really figures it out. Like, as she's walking away, he's just kind of like, wait, who are you? She's like, what? I'm Anthony. And he's like, no, you're a woman. Who are you? And then figures out, oh my God, this is Mina. This is the twin who she has a scandalous reputation. There was some rumor that there was a failed elopement a couple of years ago, and that's why Mina has been relegated to the country, and her marrying like somebody else to get them out of debt is really not an option because of that scandal that happened a couple of years ago. Simon really respects that Mina loves her brother enough to do this for him and also like apologizes on his behalf. She's very like pragmatic, and also she has balls of steel to be able to go duel in her brother's place. He ends up by offering her position as his secretary. He respected their father. They both were in the House of Lords, and this is why he feels compelled to offer her that position, but also just because, you know, this is a fascinating woman, and he kind of wants to be around her a little bit more. Of course, he's not thinking in those terms, but he definitely just cannot let this go. He cannot let her just disappear, and also he has the means to be able to help them out financially. He's going to pay her a salary, and she negotiates for, you know, the benefits and what kind of salary she's going to receive. I also really love Stacey Reid's choice with Simon in his characterization. He also feels like, okay, so first of all, he was a prodigy. He was reading before he was like 1 year old and went to university like very young, and he's such a big proponent of these reforms that he is studiously working on. He's very like, he's kind of like a workaholic, I guess you would characterize him as. No interest in really finding a wife. He has given his grandmother carte blanche and picking him a wife like eventually, but he's too focused on his work right now to, he does not feel like thinking about that, courting a woman or whatever, which makes his interest in Mina fascinating because it's not like he's like immediately sexually attracted to her. There's just something fascinating that he finds out about Mina, and every single time he gets annoyed, he even like decrees like, hey, you can't smile, like there's no smiling. That's one of my stipulations of hiring you. And when she does slip up and smiles, he feels like he starts scowling even more. And like, you as the reader just know like the reason why he doesn't want her to smile is because it's affecting him, and he wants to be work focused, but now all of a sudden he finds this woman intriguing, and I love that. The dynamic between this couple is so awesome, and this is an incredibly romantic book. Like, it's probably going to be featured on the podcast, and I'll go into all the details of like what I find so special about this book, but I loved it so much that I gave this book 6 stars. Definitely one of my favorite ones that I've read in 2022. I've been stingy with my 6 stars this year, and yeah, this one deserves the 6 stars. Next, I picked up Taken by a Sinner by Michelle Hurd. I've read a couple Michelle Hurds before, and I like them. She writes mafia romance, and I was intrigued by Taken by a Sinner because this was, first of all, an age gap, taboo stepbrother, stepsister romance, and our hero's the head of the Greek mafia. So I was like, oh, I've never read any Greek mafia romance. I put it on my mafia romance TBR for the readathon that we did a couple months ago, and I never got to that one, but I read another Michelle Hurd. Recently, Jen from the Book Refuge read Taken by a Sinner in the second book as well, and also got the ARC for the third one. She did not like Taken by a Sinner. Other people did, and even though I knew that Jen didn't really love the first book, and we're pretty aligned when it comes to mafia romance. We have the same taste when it comes to mafia romance. Even though I knew that I might not like book 1, I don't know why. Sometimes I'm compelled to read a series in reading order, even if the author says that they can all technically stand alone. Sometimes I'm just kind of like, no, I want to start from the beginning, and then I'll make my way, especially when there's not like a ton of books in the series. There's only 2 currently out. So I'm just like, I might as well read the first book, because this series is connected because each hero in the book is the head of a mafia family. So one is Greek, one's Irish, one's Italian, one's Russian. You know, that's how they're connected, but you don't need to read one to understand the other because they happen in different places. Like, they have their own territories and stuff. But I'm sure the hero from book 1 will probably show up in book 2, like in some sort of capacity. Anyway, I did not enjoy this book that much until the second half of it. And part of the reason is because of the attitude of both the hero and the heroine, like right off the bat. Nicholas, we're gonna call him Nick. He is the hero. He's 36, and his father, who was the retired Greek mob boss, is getting married again, and he's getting married to this woman named Helena. She has a daughter who's 21. She's in college. Her name is Teresa. Her nickname is Tess. Their first meeting does not really go well. First of all, Tess decides not to shake Nick's hand because on their first meeting, Nick actually comes back from torturing a guy. So he like enters his own home bloody, goes upstairs to change, and when he comes back down, he offers, when he introduces himself to Tess, his hand, and she refuses to shake it because she's thinking to herself, like, this is insane. I don't want to be involved with the mafia. Her dad was involved with the mafia, but he's been dead for a number of years, since she was 8 years old, and she has grown up much away from the politics of it all. Her only interest is graduating in college. She loves photography and film and wants to make her own films. That's all she wants. She doesn't want to be attached to this huge mafia family. She just has no interest in it. So she's thinking, like, this dude just tortured somebody. Like, I can't shake his hand. He just had the blood of somebody else on his hands. He's offended by this and decides to treat her kind of like a piece of shit. Like, he threatens her, and he doesn't know that she has anxiety because of past trauma. So I think that both characters act like assholes. He is an overbearing alpha asshole, but she also is defiant in a way that I don't really love I know that this is weird, but I don't really love my mafia heroines to be this defiant. The meeker ones. There's a difference between, like, Raina from Brutal Vows. Like, she was she was a boss ass bitch, and she could be defiant if she wants to because she had, like, shit to back it up with. Like, she was a badass. She could handle herself. Teresa, not so much. So her defiance comes off more as like kind of bratty behavior and kind of like, you're an idiot. You say you want to fly under the radar, that you don't want anything to do with this family. Well, stop being openly a bitch to the person who's literally super dangerous, that you think in your mind is super dangerous. He has threatened your way of life, saying like, I can make your life miserable. And yet you still do these stupid, asinine, little defiant things. I hated it. I hated their relationship in the beginning. He was obsessed with her for no reason, just because he liked to dominate her, and she just eventually is attracted to him. I will say I liked their relationship later when he stops the asshole antics and she stops just trying to defy him. And all of a sudden I enjoy their relationship a lot more. But it was a pretty weak premise, a pretty weak story, and I hated the way it began. So I gave this book 3 stars. Does not mean that I don't want to continue with the series, because I absolutely do. But yeah, this one was just not my favorite. Thought it was pretty weak, like I said, overall. It had its good moments toward the end, but that setup was bad. Then I picked up Rev to the Max by Melanie Moreland. This is another recommendation from Jen. She said that she knew that I would really enjoy this one, so I downloaded it a couple weeks ago. Didn't quite know if I wanted to start my vlog that I'm going to be doing in the next couple of days yet in the car. I didn't have my camera with me or anything, which I could have done it on my phone, but I decided to pick up Rev to the Max because I wanted kind of a change of pace. This was going to be a contemporary romance, and Jen had said even though the cover features a man on a motorcycle, it's not an MC romance. The hero is actually a mechanic and he works on both cars and motorcycles alike. So I was like, okay, I'm interested in that. This is a grumpy sunshine, also age gap trope. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it so much. It's small town feel too. Our heroine, Charlene, which she calls herself, her nickname is Charlie. She has been blindsided by a terrible roommate. A terrible roommate has conned her and taken her for all she was worth. All of her savings that she had, furniture that she had in the apartment, like all of it is gone. And she recently found out that her roommate was not paying the rent. She was exchanging sexual favors for rent money and pocketing Charlene's portion of it. So not only is she broke, she owes money for rent. And the landlord is a sleazebag, basically suggesting that if you don't want me to kick you out, then you can sleep with me. But he doesn't even stop there. When she says no, he basically says, I have a key. I can get in here anytime I want. I'm going to give you to the end of the week. And her life feels like it is absolutely in danger because he multiple times tries to get in while she is at the apartment. Like she has a chair underneath it. So anyway, but she doesn't know what to do. She has $27 to her name. $27. She has no job because the company just folded. Every time she goes in for a job interview, they hire like the person that came in before her. So she's just having horrible luck. Well, she basically goes on like this website that's kind of like Craigslist for jobs and reads this advertisement and has to respond to it because she's just kind of like, who is writing this? This sounds so kind of like sexist, and like who even says anything about like a girl Friday anymore? Well, this is our hero, Max. He got advice. He's a little bit old-fashioned. He's not super up-to-date with technology, and he's in his early 40s, so he's not old or anything, but he just shuns technology. And when his neighbor and also kind of mother figure suggests, hey, you should post an advertisement for not just a secretary, like he needed like a lot of things. He also wanted like, he was offering up room and board, so he needed somebody who would cook for him as well because he knows jack shit about cooking. He needs somebody who could organize the chaos of his life, and also somebody who could do like the books and everything for his business that he runs by himself. He is a one-man show. So his advertisement lists all the things and even like says like, hey, if you can make pies, that would also be great too. And what do you know? Our heroine, Charlie, she makes pies. So she initially kind of responds to the ad in a sarcastic way, just kind of like, buddy, what the hell kind of ad is this? Like, I can't believe you said this in the ad. And they kind of like banter back and forth, but she wasn't seriously thinking that she needed this job. She had other options. Well, then when all those fell through, she's like, oh shit, maybe since that person is actually offering room and board, I feel incredibly unsafe in this apartment. I can't stay here any longer. Like maybe this is what I need. So she applies for it. And he hires her under the assumption that Charlie is a boy. So when Charlie, escaping this very dangerous situation of staying in an apartment where the landlord literally has no problem walking in and has threatened to basically sexually assault her because that's what he wants, she leaves early and arrives in the small town at the diner and has a run-in with our hero, but they have no idea. They're completely unaware of each other's identity. There's a little mix-up with the names, okay? And I don't want to like go into the details, but let's just say she is unaware that this really hot guy at the bar, who kind of comes in to step in when there was a douchebag trying to hit on her, unaware that this guy, who everyone calls Reynolds, is going to be her new boss, and he has no idea Charlene goes by Charlie. So yeah, they sleep together, and it creates some tension when they figure out, oh shit, you're my new boss, and I thought you were a boy, and now I just slept with my employee. Like, maybe this is not such a good idea, but Charlie needs the job. She can't let him run her off. So I love this so much. The banter between them, fantastic. Max's level of grumpiness is literally my catnip. Like, I loved his grumpy ways. I loved how he couldn't help but be charmed by Charlie, you know, during the course of her organizing his life. He has some past like issues that he's dealing with, and that makes him a little bit grumpy in the way that he's dealing with Charlie. But she is so resilient. She's just like, you cannot get me down. I will be the best goddamn employee you've ever had. Like, try to run me off. Like, I'm gonna make sure that I'm so integral to your life that you won't know what to do without me. And that's her attitude, and it works so well. I think that this couple is fantastic, and I'm gonna give this book 6 stars too. Like, I don't know what happened in the course of a couple of days. Literally on Friday, I was lamenting that I just was being very stingy with the 6 stars. And then in the course of one single day, I had 2 books that I rated 6 stars. Like, who am I? I'm not mad about it, man. I'm not mad about it. So yeah, that is my last book that I read for this week. And as you can see, I'm like on a book high right now. Like, I'm in a very good mood. I've read some really great books all in a row. It's just been very lucky for me. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna start my monster romance blog today. So that's going to be exciting. It looks like Catherine Moon is still on schedule to release The Company of Fiends in a couple of days. So I think that that one will make it on the vlog too. But I do have a lot of books on that vlog planned for the vlog. So yeah, that's my reading plans for this coming week. Alright guys, if you liked today's video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to get notified on any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with a little HEA. Bye guys!